Did you know Great World MRT has the highest supply of condos in its vicinity across all the MRT stations in Singapore? And that's not including the 5 launches coming right up. Now, that's going to make an already difficult task of deciding the right property in that area even harder. So to help us all out, I spent the last 7 days analyzing all the resale performances of the condos surrounding these launches and put them into our exit strategy framework so that we can all decide in the most unbiased way possible using data. If you're curious about the supply thing I mentioned on at the very start of this video, you could check out our oversupply video where we analyze the relationship between the supply of condos around an MRT station and their profitability across all the MRT stations in Singapore. And before we continue on this video, we'd be really thankful if you hit that like and subscribe button as you'll help out the channel a ton and to give us a little bit of motivation to continue doing what we do. But in this video, we'll be analyzing River Green, Promenade Peak, Robertson Opus, and Upper House, of which we have already done a detailed review of Robertson Opus, and you can check that out somewhere in this video or down in the description. So how we're going to structure this video is that we'll start off by immediately diving into the data and research by utilizing our exit strategy framework, our gap score, exit score, and even the layouts to rank the projects against one another by unit types. We're also going to share the 3 things we like and don't quite like about the 4 different projects before ending with how we approach this launcher should we be looking to buy a unit for ourselves. Before we dive into the data and research that we've done for the River Valley and Orchard Boulevard area, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, do check out this video where we share in detail why and how we develop our exit strategy framework. You could also check out some of these reviews where we utilize our exit strategy framework to compare them on an apple-to-apple basis. But just in case you don't have the time or energy to click out this video and click back in, quick summary. Why did we create the exit strategy framework? It's because this word exit strategy has been thrown around a whole lot recently. It's this big word that encompasses so many different factors, and the kind of answers that we keep hearing just weren't good enough. Right. So we utilize our 10 years of experience to really extract out the important data points that we feel can help give everybody more clarity on the particular exit strategy for a project, and also develop this framework to help everybody and also to allow us to compare different projects on an apple-to-apple basis. If you'd like to take a look at some of the research that we have done, feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to send it over to you. Now let's get right down to it. I'm going to be utilizing the 2-bedroom comparisons. Okay, here we have Robertson Opus, River Green, Promenade Peak, and Upper House to explain the exit strategy framework, right, and some of the data points we use and why we choose them. So first of all, we have the price, the PSF, we have the quantum, and we have the size of the unit. For here, we already have the information for Robertson Opus and Upper House. As of the shooting of this video, we don't quite yet have the information for the indicative prices for River Green and also for Promenade Peak, but I'm pretty sure by the time this video comes out, their indicative prices will have been out, right? So we'll be updating them as the information comes in. So again, right, if you'd like to have the updated exit strategy framework, you could feel free to reach out to us as well, ask for the updated ones as and when we update them. Okay, so the first data point we have and we utilize, perhaps the most important one of them all, is the average profitability per annum, and this is across all the 2 bidders within the areas that we have analyzed. Later on, I will show it to you. Now, why do we use average profitability per annum? Because based on my experience, right, that is the best indication of demand. Why? Okay, so if an area has not enough demand, owners tend to have to sell their units for a longer period of time, and if you can't sell it within a certain period of time, you tend to then drop your price, and that eats into your profits. Okay, so versus an area with high demand, right, and owners ask for a certain amount of price and immediately get snapped up, the next owner then will then ask for a higher price. Okay, so that just indicates stronger demand, the areas with higher profitability. Okay, and we break it down into profitability per annum. That kind of equalizes, different holding periods as well. Okay, so next up, right, as with economics, there's always, if you analyze demand, you also have to analyze supply. Okay, and for supply, we use our supply ratio where we take into consideration not just the total number of units built in that area, but also the number of units on sale. Okay, because if you remember when we talked about at the earliest part of the video, the Great World area is actually already the highest supplied area in terms of the surrounding within an MRT station across all MRT stations in Singapore. But the average profitability of those condos still do pretty well as compared to some of the other areas with even lesser supply. So what does that tell you? We cannot just look at how much units have been built in an area. We have to see how many people are willing to sell. And then again, based on the average profitability per annum, the kind of demand in that area. Okay, so with all of that, we then come up with an exit score, essentially giving demand and supply just one score and one percentage, okay? And this percentage, the lower, the better. Now, the next thing you might have noticed is that, why the exit score for Robertson Opus, River Green, and Promenade Peak is the same, and it's because this score is area specific. Okay, and in my opinion, any buyers coming into the River Valley area will naturally consider across a wide area. Okay, they are not just looking at, of course, some of them may be looking, I just want to be within the vicinity of the Great World MRT, for example, Great World City, for example. But in my experience, based on my experience, if they want to come into the River Valley, there's a certain area that they are open to consider. We'll dive into that later on when we check out the supply. Okay, I'm just going to finish off with some of the scorings and why we pick out some of these data points. Okay, so this is the exit score, one score. Okay, lower the better, compare them across the board. We'll also be able to utilize these exit scores to compare with some of the more popular developments previously sold. We have also done so for Chuan Park, Emerald of Katong, Nava Grove. I also have another spreadsheet for Ori as well. Okay, so we can then compare them across one another. So next up, we have the average quantums in an area as well as the average, median, and highest per square feet. Okay, average, median, and highest quantum, average, median, and highest per square feet. Okay, I use two different parameters per square feet and quantums. Okay, because a lot of the investors, they tend to think only in terms of per square feet. But when we bring buyers to an area, when we serve buyers come to us with a particular quantum in mind. The budget is in terms of quantums, not in terms of PSF. Nobody comes to me and says, Elvin, my budget is 2,400 PSF, for example. They come to me with, I have a budget of $2.4 million. I need 3 bedrooms, for example. Where can I take a look at? So if the demand is thinking in terms of quantums, maybe when we analyze a purchase, we should also think in terms of quantums. Okay, and with all this, we sum it up to also have a score. When we see a negative score, means that our entry quantum is actually lower than the median, average, and highest quantums. Some of the things I don't like is because, and why I choose to also evaluate average and median is because I feel sometimes, especially agents, I'm an agent myself, but sometimes when I hear pictures, they only quote the highest quantums and the highest PSFs achieved in an area and try to sell it to you that, you are still way below these numbers, which I don't feel gives an accurate gauge. Okay, so now, let's take a look at these supply numbers, and especially for the River Valley area, it does seem like it's quite a high number. Let's take a look at what I have considered. Okay, so for the River Valley developments, I'm talking about Robertson, Opus, River Green, as well as Promenade Peak. Okay, I've considered all the developments above 100 units within 500 meters of 3 MRT stations with Havelock MRT, Great World MRT, and Fort Canning MRT. Okay, all developments within 500 meters of that above 100 units. Okay, so we have our usual suspects, our big boys like Valley Park, Canning Hill, Pierce. This one has already been filtered in terms of number of units, size of the development by number of units. Aspen Heights, Rivergate, Irwell Hill, River Place, Riviere, Martin Modern, Avenir. You would also kind of notice, if you go down the list, they tend to, the larger developments, the developments with more units tend to have a higher average profitability than those with a smaller number of units. So that's just something to pay attention to, okay? And we've also, right, you may see that we have not yet factored some of the new developments. You don't find the names of the new developments inside, but we have already factored the supply of those incoming units into this total number, right? If you see over here, we've already added that from another tab over here where we sum up all the incoming supply. Alright, so if you'd like to take a look at this, feel free to reach out to us, right? We're happy to share. In terms of transactions, it's only transactions within the past 12 months, right? No point considering transactions from all too far back, because what we want to have is an accurate gauge of, you know, how much money people are willing to pay at this point in time to land themselves in this area, to buy the developments in this area, okay? So we have broken down into the 1-bedder, the 2-bedders, the 3-bedders, the 4-bedders, okay? The 3-bedders and 4-bedders. We'll take a quick look at them. Right, so for the 1-bedders, if you can see upper house, because there's very little, there's essentially no 1-bedroom transactions in the resale market in the last 12 months, so we weren't able to see the average profitability over there, so we don't really have to score here. But if you see the gap score, it's very good, right? Minus 179%, okay? And then you can see this, the 1-bedders over in the River Valley area, they score about 220%. If you compare that to the Chuan Park ones, Emerald of Katong Chuan Park ones, it's actually still better than the EOK 1-bedrooms. Yeah, still better than EOK 1-bedrooms. Profitability not great at 2.4%, right? But depending on your entry price, so this is where things will differ, right? Based on their entry price, okay? Because each development has their own individual entry prices, and we compare that to the average, median, and surrounding ones. So River Green will have a negative one, but if you're entering into Robertson Opus, Promenade Peak, okay, you'll be above the average, right? We have a positive gap score, but not too bad lah, right? But do remember, some of the developments that we consider over here, we include both 99 and freehold and 999, okay? So now for the 2-bedders, notice the score for upper house is better than that for the River Valley area, but do note, okay, that is primarily because the supply in the Orchard Boulevard area is very low. But if you take a look at the profitability, it's not good, okay? So if you want profitable areas, I do then suggest you pick the River Valley ones instead, yeah? We've also has the average surrounding quantums, okay? And it will differ slightly between the River Valley and the Orchard Boulevard area, okay? And in terms of gaps, primarily we will have a negative gap. So you want the larger negative number, right? Which means that you have a wider gap. I take for example, so the largest negative number over here is for the River Green 2 compact, right? I believe it's a 2-bed 1-bath. Okay, so over here, let's say we enter at 1.528 mil, that gives us close to a 900k gap to the average surrounding quantum, almost a 2 mil gap to the highest achieved quantum in that area. Most of the time, you should be positive, right? And positive for the average and the median, because we are new, okay? But you'll be the negative to the highest one. I'll be concerned if you are positive to the highest one. Very concerned if you are positive to the highest one, especially if you are in the River Valley area, okay? Again, right, we can just have a quick check over here. You notice their gap scores are a lot better, right? Except maybe for the EOK 4-bedder, right? A lot better than the other 2-bedders of the previous launches. Yeah. Next up, we take a look at the 3-bedders, okay? Similarly, 3-bedder for the Orchard Boulevard area scores better in terms of the exit score, but that being said, profitability is still lower. The lower exit score is primarily due to the lack of supply, right? But gaps wise, very good. Notice again, for example, the River Valley 3-bedder, the average 3-bedder and median 3-bedder hovers at about 3.5 million in the River Valley area. Highest, it's at 7.2 million, giving us a very comfortable gap based on, let's say, a sub 2.5 million entry price, okay? In terms of PSF, again, right, we'll be higher than the average and the median, but still lower than the highest, okay? I'm going to end my analysis at the 4-bedder because 5-bedder data don't really have a lot, right? But 4-bedder, okay, notice the 4-bedder profitabilities aren't great. Okay, aren't great. So for the 4-bedders, I highly suggest we dive even deeper into the analysis, right? Because notice there are certain ones with very good profitability, very good profitability, right? Especially those with higher transactions, yeah? Especially those with higher, quite a decent number of transactions. There's quite a fair bit of outliers over here. So, for this, we'll dive into greater detail for the clients that work with us, okay? But again, right, we're happy to send this over to you for you to take a look for it on your own. I know some of you might be saying, hey Alvin, I thought your exit strategy framework is to help us compare the developments on an apple-to-apple basis, but River Green, Promenade Peak, and Robertson Opus all have the same exit score, so now how is that going to help us? So first thing, right, utilize the gap score to compare. Second, let me help you by sharing with you my ranking in terms of which of the developments I like the layouts better. I'm not going to go analyze them, the layouts one by one, because then that's just going to make this video super duper long. So I'm just going to straight out share with you my rankings and my reasons for those rankings, okay? So for 2-bed 1-bath, okay, I'm not going to compare the 1-bedders for you, because 1-bedder, the layouts are all more or less the same. I'm just going to start off with the 2-bedders, okay? 2-bed 1-bath, only River Green have, so again, no need to compare. We'll win or lose depending on how you kind of look at it, okay? For 2-bed 2-bath, okay, the lowest rank would be Promenade Peak, right? Because it's open concept kitchen and I feel dining and living area is very small, okay? Coming in, third rank, right, will be River Green's layout, right? It beats Promenade Peak because it still has a enclosed kitchen with a designated dining area, but I just feel that the dining and the living area and the kitchen is, the flow isn't as nice as the second rank one, which is Upper House, enclosed kitchen with a dining area that has a better linkage to the kitchen, right? And the best one, in my opinion, would be Robertson Opus for the 2-bed 2-bath, okay, because it has enclosed kitchen and natural ventilation for the toilets and also for the kitchen. Next up, my ranking for the 2+ study layouts coming in number 4 again will be Promenade Peak, right? Because again, right, it is an open kitchen and I feel there's quite a fair bit of wasted space over there. Coming in number 3 will be River Green, right? While the study can be a room, there's no real dining areas in that particular layout, right? Coming in second will be Robertson Opus. Again, not much in terms of the dining area, but still win in terms of the fact that it has an enclosed kitchen and the layouts are efficient, okay? And the best 2+ study, in my opinion, belongs to Upper House, right? Very, very little wasted space, very comfortable dining area, and also a study that comes with windows. And my rankings for the 3 compacts, right? So 3 compacts don't have the utility room and the WC, okay? So Upper House doesn't have a 3 compact, so we are not going to consider that. So coming in number 3 again is Promenade Peak. So while there's quite a number of different configurations, I'm going to share just based on what I've seen in the architect's brief, okay? So for this particular layout, it's very, very weird with a long corridor in essentially the shape of a gun, and I feel that the entrance is going to get little to no natural light, so it's going to feel very, very dark. This is the layout that's going to be seen in the show flat, but again, right, show flats, they have all the light in the world. It try to help make the layout look as nice as possible already, but visualizing when you actually collect your keys, there's little to no light that's going to hit your, very little light that's going to hit your living room and also your entrance, okay? Coming in number 2 will be River Green's 3-bedder, albeit very, very small in terms of the size. That's why I have no idea how they still manage to fit in a household shelter on top of all the 3 bedrooms, okay? But very good, still very efficient, even with natural ventilation, okay? But coming in number 1 for the 3 compact layout would be Robertson Opus, right? Albeit significantly larger in size as compared to River Green, right? But you have everything you need, natural ventilation for the kitchens and for the toilets, but most of all, right, windows inside the flexi room, right? So this one beats River Green because it gives you a flexi room instead of a household shelter, of which, right, the 926 square feet is the best by far. Now, moving on to my rank for the 3-bedroom premiums, okay? So River Green doesn't have a 3-bedroom premium, so they're out. So coming in third would be Upper House, okay? It's not that there's anything bad, it's just that it's very, very standard, okay? So it's gonna come in the third, okay? And I have a little bit of concerns for it being so standard in an atas area like Orchard Boulevard, yeah? Coming in second would be Promenade Peak, okay? It's quite unique in that sense. I do quite like it, even though it's not your kind of cookie cutter style, okay? Very good size for a 3-bedroom with a private lift, and at least they save space in terms of the corridor. They were very efficient in the use of the corridor. Very good considering how bad they designed their other 3 compacts in terms of the length of the corridors, okay? And coming in number 1 for 3 premiums will be Robertson Opus. Again, extremely efficient in terms of their layout with a flexi room and a household shelter, so you got a place for storage plus a place for your helper. And lastly, my rankings for the 4 bedrooms. Coming in 4th position is Upper House. I just feel that for a quantum that large, the layout isn't great, and I feel the placing of the master bedroom so close to the living room and the entrance is a little bit odd, okay? Coming in number 3 would be Robertson Opus, okay? It's a bit big in terms of the sizing for no private lift, and especially in that area. Not exactly a deal breaker for me. I just hope that I would have hoped for something that size and at that quantum that they provide for a private lift. And also I feel that there's a little bit too much balcony space, right? We have that odd balcony in the master bedroom. That is the single most hated feature for all layouts, okay? And that's why that's coming in at the 3rd position. In 2nd position would be Promenade Peak's 4-bedder. I think it's very, very neat. No real complaints about it, right? But still, at the end of the day, in my opinion, it's River Green's 4-bedder that comes up tops. It's the most efficient 4-bedder that I've ever seen in my life. 980 square feet still fit in a household shelter for you. Little to no wasted space. The only complaint perhaps for that is that it's short of 1 toilet. It's just 4-bedder, 2 toilets. It's unique in a way, but we have actually seen this layout being taken up pretty well in the OCR and the RCR. The only question is, how would the take-up be like for a layout like that in the CCR? So now that I've covered the quantitative analysis of the projects and the areas, let's take a look at some of the qualitative factors that you should consider in terms of your selection, okay? So we are also considering things like the size of the development, transformation, especially if you're picking between these developments, they are more or less the same. But this is something that you should put into consideration. For example, you're not just looking at the River Valley launches, you're also comparing them for investment, and so you're also considering this area and also other areas involved, right? So transformation. But if you follow us, we take this not as a very, very huge factor, because transformations take time, and more or less every area in Singapore has some form of transformation, right? So not all transformations are made equal as well. So yeah, factor it in, but don't factor that as your main consideration, okay? And think about any new plots to support in and around the area, the age of the developments, also the rental yield, especially if you're looking for investment, okay? Then again, right, all these factors, more for you to consider if you're considering areas as opposed to, within this particular case or the River Valley launches, yeah? If you are looking to buy for your own stay, right, things also like schools, MRT, amenities, and more for the 3rd one as well, right? Portfolio optimization, which is one of the reasons a lot of clients come to us. Yeah, we are looking also to compare between your different holding periods, okay? So different projects have different holding periods. Today is 4 years, okay? Give you an example, if you're looking at something like Robertson Opus, a 2-bedder over there, you might be having a slightly longer holding period as compared to the River Green 2-bedder due to the amount of gap that you're entering at for River Green, for example, yeah? In terms of portfolio sizing, what's the optimal purchase price for you based on your affordability, based on your portfolio, and also where you hope to get to. And if you would like to take a look at how we have optimized our portfolio, you could check out our video over here. Okay, another thing to consider is opportunity cost, right? Should you be waiting to buy? Should you save up a little bit more and get a slightly larger unit, or should you get something with whatever you have at this point in time? Again, that's a opportunity cost consideration. Another way to consider opportunity cost is, should you sell your current own estate, go out to rent to buy one of these new developments, or should you then just consider resale instead? The good thing about the exit strategy framework is that you could use it also to compare resale developments, yeah? And lastly, right, exit timing. So when is the best time to sell? All the more important for an area like River Valley where the supply is so high. Okay. Next up, once we have zeroed in on the particular development, then is unit selection. How do you kind of approach launch day? Right? We have competitor analysis, layout analysis. So I've just done a very, very simple ranking of the layouts, but these are not terribly comprehensive, okay? Because these are just simply based on whatever we have received from the developer at this point in time. So for our clients, definitely, you are not just analyzing the layouts between these developments that you are choosing, you also got to consider some of the resale developments in that area, because at the end of the day, when you sell in the resale market, all of them are your competitors. You are not just competing with Promenade Peak. If you buy Robertson Opus, you're not just competing with Promenade Peak or River Green, you're comparing with all the developments in that area, okay? Especially on this point of PSF gap within the development, it's because, especially for Promenade Peak, for example, 63 stories. Of course, if you're buying between the 1 to the 3 bedders, you go all the way up to 40 odd stories. Just to be aware, you know, by the time let's say you buy a 2-bed, 2-bath or 2+ study, you buy quite a high floor. Does it then make more sense for you to just top up a little bit to buy a lower floor unit that is slightly larger in size, for example, a 3 compact for that matter? So it's all about watching the gap, PSF gap, the quantum gaps in the development, and all these are strategies to adopt during launch day. So if all of this seems overwhelming to you, don't worry, feel free to reach out to us. We are happy to help you out. Or if you simply just want to take a look at the research, you could do the same. So if you enjoyed the video so far, we'll be very, very thankful if you hit that like and subscribe button, as you help out the channel a ton. And as you can see, the research that we do take a lot of effort. So we're just hoping for a little bit of motivation to continue doing what we do. And now, let's move on to the 3 things I like and don't quite like about the 4 projects. We're going to start off first with Robertson Opus, because we've already done a video on it, and if you'd like to check that out, you could click on the link somewhere in this video or down in the description. But I've also decided to switch out the points a little bit, because now that I have greater clarity on the details of its competition, there are some new points that I've decided to add. Okay, first of all, the most obvious point on what we like about Robertson Opus is its 999 years status. It's the only one out of these 4 developments that is 999 years, right? The only other potential 999 years of freehold development that's going to come up in the River Valley area is the potential redevelopment of Valley Point, but we have no idea when that is going to come yet. On the second point of what we like about Robertson Opus is its mixed-use status. While there's going to be 2 mixed-use developments. First is Robertson Opus. The second one, it's Zion Road Plot Parcel A, the one that is right beside Promenade Peak, going to be developed by CDL, likely to be launched a later part of the year. So on to the last point of what we like about Robertson Opus. We've mentioned this in our previous video, but just a very quick summary for everybody over here, is the fact that there may potentially be the 99 years development that fetch a higher PSF or even a higher price than a 999 years development, simply because of the fact that these neighboring competitions are all very, very tall. Take for example Promenade Peak, 63 levels. So on the level 1, they may start off with very, very cheap 2004, maybe 2500 PSF, but if they're aggressive in their level staging, there may be a chance some of the higher floor units may fetch a higher PSF or even a higher quantum than a 999 year unit at the very same age in the very same area. So now what that does is that gives you a very, very comfortable entry price, very, very safe entry price for Robertson Opus. Now moving on to the 3 things I don't quite like about Robertson Opus. The first thing I don't quite like is the design of the facilities. There's this big hole in the middle of the facilities deck, allowing everybody from the commercial area, the commercial podium, to kind of look up into the developments. That also means that noise will potentially come up. That hole has also caused the facilities deck to look a lot smaller than what it could have potentially been, right? Onto the second thing I don't quite like is really the distance to the MRT. Robertson Opus, out of the 4, has the longest distance to the MRT, and it's also not fully sheltered. It's maybe 80% sheltered, right? But not fully sheltered. Now, the last point I don't quite like about Robertson Opus is that it doesn't really offer much views, right? It's in the middle of a already built up area, so even if you choose high floor, you try to choose some of the best facings, but honestly, right, if you're somebody that likes views, this is probably not the project for you. Next up, moving on to River Green, and we're going to start with the 3 things we like about River Green. So first up is this maintenance fees. I'm going to put that up onto the screen, and as you can see, very, very reasonable maintenance fees, and you get more bang for your buck if you buy the bigger units. Onto the second thing we like is this distance to the MRT. Out of all of them, the launches, right, this is perhaps the closest to the MRT, essentially a direct link to the MRT. Right, onto the third thing we like about River Green is its entry quantum. So if you've seen our exit strategy framework, River Green has a great gap score as compared to all the other unit types in and around the area. I think perhaps it has the best gap score across all the projects that we have analyzed so far. And moving on to the three things that we don't quite like about River Green. And so the first thing that we don't quite like is kind of a spillover from the third point that we like, right? Which is its entry quantum. But if you kind of flip it around, it has that good of an entry quantum because of its small sizing. Of course, people will be asking, this kind of size, will people buy? Will there be demand? So at the end of the day, it's anyone's guess, but I'm leaning more towards the fact that it is cheap enough, there will be demand. And perhaps this has been something that I've been sharing with my clients, so I could share with everybody. So if you look at the sizing, you may think like, wow, this size is really very small for 3-bedroom. But for the right entry price, you could actually even look at it from the perspective that, it's almost the same price as, like for example, right, the 3 compact, right, that is starting from like 2.25, it's almost the price of a RCR 2+ study. And then if you look at it, if you change the perspective around in this way, then it's actually very, very fair because other people buy 2+ study at 2.1, 2.2, they also look to sell for a profit. Now you have a 3-bedder. And if you compare to a 2+ study, you are better than the 2+ study at the same entry price, but for a better area. Now onto the second thing I don't quite like about River Green, of course, is its small size, also in terms of the number of units, right? Coming in slightly over 300 units is the smallest in the Great World batch. Of course, is larger than Upper House, but let's just look at the Great World cluster. It's the smallest one amongst them, even comparing to Riviere, Well Hill, and also the upcoming Grand Zion. And on to the last point I don't quite like about River Green is this odd-shaped land. We picked this out all the way 2 years back about, how odd this shape of land is, and considering that it's on like the east-west orientation, I think Wing Tai has already done a great job in still producing a very decent product, right? But due to the shape of the land, the facilities are a little bit odd to me. You got to walk really far to get to the barbecue pit at the corner. Of course, some of you might be saying, good lah, then the barbecue pit dump all the way at the corner. But yeah, having an odd-shaped piece of land kind of hinders the whole grandness that you'll feel with the overall development lah. Next up, Promenade Peak, and we're going to start off with the 3 things we like about Promenade Peak. The first thing we like is its iconic status, being one of the tallest residential developments in Singapore. It's going to be the new landmark in the River Valley area. So imagine this, next time when you want to sell, you tell people that, I live in Promenade Peak. They say, yeah, the one that's right beside Great World City, the one that is very, very tall. People's attention will go there, people's consciousness will go there, and it will be kind of top of mind, right? And we talk about sales, we talk about top of mind when they want to move into the River Valley area. That will be one of the first ones that they check out, right? Also due to its proximity to Great World and also due to its distance to the MRT. Definitely, it will be one of the developments people will check out. Now, onto the second thing we like about Promenade Peak, building on from the fact that it's one of the tallest residential developments in Singapore, it's its floor price staging. So what do I mean by that? Developers tend to increase the price for every floor jump that you get. And considering there's 63 floors, that's a lot of jump to be had. But based on my understanding, for the smaller units or for the 3 compact, right, it's only going to go from level 1 all the way to level 40, and the units further up will be a different unit type, right, more with the private lifts. Okay, just to give you an example, right, we have another high-rise development so earlier this year, right, the Ori. I just took a look at it, right. The lowest floor, one of the 3 compacts that was sold, was slightly over 2 million, and that same unit type on the highest floor was sold for 2.5 million. Now, this is the exact same unit, just different floor level, and there's a $500,000 difference, 25% difference, okay? Of course, right? If you're looking for own stay, you're somebody that likes the view, that's great, right? You can buy the higher floor. But if you're looking for investment, then you've got to be all the more careful to watch this gap and make sure that you don't overpay. On to the last point I like about Promenade Peak are the views. Since it's one of the tallest residential developments in Singapore, I thought it was a very nice touch from the developers to put in the sky pool, the facilities on the sky deck so that everybody gets to enjoy the views. And don't estimate this little point over here, because when it comes to rentals, this may be the differentiating factor if you own a unit in Promenade Peak, right, to beat out some of the other developments in the area. Onto the three things I don't quite like about Promenade Peak is this percentage of 1 and 2 bedders. As we know, 1 and 2 bedders are primarily bought by investors. So let's take a look at this table over here. At Promenade Peak, that number comes up to 64%. Now, is this a deal breaker? I think this is still within a pretty good range. Of course, we hope for that number to come even lower. And on to the second point of what we don't quite like about Promenade Peak is the potential noise. Now, being sandwiched by the very busy Kim Seng Road and Zion Road, especially on the lower floor, I believe it can get quite noisy. But of course, we trust the developers to do in good sound insulation. That said, if you're the kind that enjoy, a more open style living where you don't really like to shut your windows and whatnot, right? You may want to pick either a higher floor unit or another development altogether. Now, on to the last point of what I don't quite like about Promenade Peak are the layouts. While not all the layouts are terrible, there's a good number of layouts that I really wouldn't consider. Again, I'm not going to take the time here to analyze all the different layouts in hopes to keep this video to the point and short, okay? But if you like my thoughts about some of the layouts, right, feel free to drop us a text. We could help you out on that. And lastly, upper house. And again, we're going to start off first with the three things we like about upper house. And point number one is this number of units. While you might say, hey, 200 units is not a lot of units, right? It's the smallest out of the 4 launches. But if you compare within the area, it's actually the development with the most number of units, because traditionally that area, they have built a lot of boutique developments with not that many units. So on this note, hopefully upper house can kind of break the trend on the poor profitability of that area. On to point number 2 on what we like about upper house is the lack of supply of smaller units in the vicinity. Take for example 1 bedrooms, okay? 1 bedrooms, we have only 100 1 bedrooms built in the vicinity of Orchard Boulevard MRT, and there's currently only 3 units for sale. For 2-bedders, there's only 392 2-bedders built in the vicinity of the Orchard Boulevard MRT, and currently there's only 6 units for sale. So in terms of supply, it's very, very low. That being said, does it mean that upper house is better than all the other 3 launches? The answer is no, because we also have to factor considerations like the profitability in that area. So on that note, the profitability over at the upper house area is much lower than that for the River Valley plots, despite the fact that the River Valley plots have higher supply. So now, how do you reconcile this point, especially if you're an investor? To be honest, if I'm an investor, I will lean more still towards the River Valley area as opposed to upper house. That said, if you're looking for own stay, you actually don't really have much alternatives within the area. And if you kind of like the layout, the price point wise is significantly lower than the rest of the units in that area, it's perhaps something you can consider. On to the third thing we like about upper house, of course, comparing the Orchard Boulevard area with the River Valley area, is that it has this more exclusive feel to it. So another way you could term it is more atas, more prime, right, because of its proximity to the embassies, proximity to more landed properties, more GCBs. And that leads me nicely to the first point of what I don't quite like about upper house is this lack of amenities, right? So it's always it's a chicken and egg thing, right? Exclusive area, as with landed areas for that matter, they don't usually come with a whole lot of amenities. But not to say that there's totally no amenities there, all right. We are a pretty good distance to Tanglin Mall in the area. Still a decent amount of F&B options available, supermarkets, right? And there's also this whole new redevelopment of that whole area by Hotel Properties, redevelopment of the old Tanglin Shopping Centre. So hopefully that brings in a lot more life into that little area in Orchard. On to the second point, what we don't quite like about Upper House, ICE maintenance fees. I'm going to put that up somewhere in this video. But again, right, what do you expect, right? This is atas area. If you are already living there, this shouldn't come as a big surprise to you. But if you're somebody that's not familiar with it, then you got to kind of accept it if you're looking to buy for own stay. If you're looking to buy for investment, it's even more important because you make sure you go and factor that into your net rental yield calculations when you're comparing the different developments against one another, because you know $100 difference in maintenance fee over the years of holding, they do add up. And on to our last point on what we don't quite like about Upper House is its poor profitability in that area. Let's take a look. So in our 3-bedroom comparisons, you can see the average profitability in and around Upper House stands only at 2.1%. That is lesser than the River Valley development average of 3.45%. If you are looking at 2-bedders, it's even worse. The average profitability stands only at 1.1% compared to the River Valley developments at 3.37%. And lastly, what would we do as an investor should we be looking to buy a unit in one of these 4 developments? For that, again, we'll come back to our exit strategy framework. So this was an actual example of what we did for one of our clients with a $3 to $5 million budget looking to invest. Okay, so here is what you've seen, right? Ranking out 3-bedders across all the 4 developments, 4-bedders across all the 4 developments. Of course, we have some of the units being placed there really just as a basis of comparisons. But again, especially if you're looking for investment, you don't really have to just buy into the River Valley area because they are launching and you get to buy on day one, right? You may potentially miss out on some very nice opportunities further out in the RCR, even in the OCR, despite the fact that they may be balanced units, especially if you have a budget north of $3 million or thereabouts the $3 million, because there's quite a fair bit of good deals still remaining. Here's a quick summary. So while the River Valley areas, right, one of the interesting things is as a new launch, you can go in with a good gap score as compared to the surrounding resale developments, primarily due to quantums. The supply there is quite high, hence giving it exit scores ranging between 118 to 155 all the way up to 200 if you are looking at the 4-bedders, right? But we have other options available that is below 100 for exit score, albeit, right? So we even have 22. So remember, the lower the better. Very, very good alternatives. That being said, it takes time to kind of reconcile because for a better exit score, the time you will have a wider gap score, right? So this has been tailored for that particular client's needs and requirements. If you need help with it, feel free to reach out to us. We could tailor one for you as well. So thank you so much for joining us on this video. We hope you have benefited in some way or another. If so, we'll be extremely thankful if you hit that like and subscribe button as you help out the channel a ton. So if you need more info about the projects, potential prices, layouts analysis, layout information, feel free to reach out to us. Happy to send it over to you. Also, if you'd like to take a look at the show flat, we can assist you with that as well. Or even just if you want to see some of the research that we have done, we are always happy to share. And lastly, if you resonate with our systematic data-driven approach to property purchases, portfolio planning, if you'd like us to help you out on that, feel free to reach out. Else, see you guys again soon. Bye-bye.